Of a sudden, you have restrictions. Spain is shutting its border, Austria is shutting its border, Italians are not welcome to some countries. Poland has also announced quite a number of measures. The US and Canada, yes, US and Canada have announced all kinds of restrictions, and we are sure that a number of measures will also come into place. And China, which is now witnessing fewer cases of coronavirus in country, but more cases coming from outside, now says if you're inbound, you'll be ready for a 14-day quarantine for observation. So the impact of all of this on foreign relations is one issue that, of course, is going to be of premium attention to us in our conversation segment. Welcome once again to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As always, we're broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios, and our program will include the regular companion segments, newspaper review, business, and of course, there was a total wipeout of sporting activities at the weekend, and that's going to last for a while. Right now, let's get the highlights of the morning news. And here's our colleague, Nolin Ebelame. Good morning, Nolin.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jumai. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. The fire outbreak that occurred at Abuleado in Trade Fair Axis of Lagos has been put under control, though as it is last night, there was still fire and thick fumes from the spot where eyewitnesses say the explosion happened. Bethlehem Girls High School, close to it, was completely leveled, and a number of the students and the principal who were in the chapel when the disaster struck died. The figure, however, is yet to be ascertained. A family of 4 is also confirmed dead in their residence, and their building, which is close to the explosion spot, completely destroyed among more than 70 buildings affected by the explosion. The flag officer commanding the Western Naval Command confirmed that about 60 persons, including students from the school, are at the Naval Hospital with varying degrees of burns.
Before we can know actual number of people affected.
Perhaps about 1,000 meters away from the pipeline, so that no human activity may come around it.
Certain, there is no act of terrorism. There is no bomb explosion, because some have been speculating that, oh, this Boko Haram entered Lagos, there's nothing like that.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, says the reported explosion, which rocked Abuleado area of Lagos State in the early hours of Sunday, resulted from gas explosion, which occurred after a truck hit some gas cylinders stacked in a gas processing plant located near the corporation's System 2B pipeline right-of-way. President Muhammadu Buhari commiserates with families who lost loved ones and all those affected by the explosion in Abuleado, Amuwo-Odofin local government area of Lagos State on Sunday. The president, in a statement by his senior special assistant on media and publicity, Garba Shehu, says he received with sadness the news of the unfortunate incident which caused loss of lives and property. A misfortune of whatever scale anywhere, the president says, is a tragedy to the country. His deepest and profound sympathy goes to the victims, their families, government, and people of Lagos State. Following a suspected case of coronavirus infection on an old woman in Enugu, the Enugu state government says it has reactivated previous medical emergency procedures used to deal with epidemics to contain the virus in the state. The patient suspected to be with the virus is an isolation facility belonging to Esut Teaching Hospital. In the meantime, Minister of Health Dr. Osage Ihanure has responded to the suspected coronavirus case in Enugu and on efforts so far in containing the virus.
The patient who came into Enugu actually came in from the United Kingdom on the 11th of March and moved from there to Owerri before she was transferred. We do not have a confirmation report yet on the test that is being done, but it will take a few hours to get the result in. But there are very many symptoms that will mimic whatever we think coronavirus is, and it is a good sign that our doctors are on the alert and they have a high index of suspicion.
Away from health to security now, the federal government has developed a strategic action plan on community violence prevention and human security, which will soon be unveiled by President Muhammadu Buhari. Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs disclosed this at a media briefing in Abuja ahead of a 3-day national conference on community violence prevention.
Committees in the local government, so that they will be meaningfully part of this. And that is why it is coming from the grassroots.
The Nigerian Air Force says the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole under Operation Decisive Age has successfully destroyed some logistics facilities and other structures belonging to elements of the Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP, at Bukar Miram, on the fringes of the Lake Chad in Borno State. In a statement by the Air Commodore Ibikule Daramola, the attack at Bukar Miram was executed on 9th March 2020 on the heels of intelligence reports indicating that the terrorists had resumed using the settlement to store their logistics supplies. Similarly, on 11th March 2020, fighter jets and a helicopter gunship scrambled by the ATF to provide close air support to ground troops at Gubio, neutralized an ISWAP gun truck and some of their fighters as they attempted to beat a retreat after they were roundly defeated by a combination of air and ground fire. The Nigerian Air Force says it will continue to operate with surface forces to destroy the enemies of our nation. That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jumai after this break. Good morning.
Not so fast. Look, I'm tired. I want to check out of this country for greener pastures.
Just calm down for a moment. Please sit down. Do you have a job where you're going to?
No, but someone is arranging,
Listen, Aliko. Checking out of this country without proper planning means one thing. Unimaginable begin.
You know, I've been in the diaspora, but legitimately doing great things at home and abroad. As I've been saying, without the proper footing abroad, the risk is not worth it. Listen, Alinko, it's better to be home than be trapped abroad or even end up in prison.
This fabric, it go fade though.
The new area Ankara, it go take good care of it.
And the price, cheap.
Try new area on your Ankara and colors now.
My name's Mr. Muftau Abiodun Balogun. We started this business 4 years ago, and this is the production outlet where we do about 4,000 to 5,000 birds per day. With the closure of the border recently, we've been experiencing massive surge in demand. Our sales per day now is going to be between 15 to 20,000 birds. We needed to expand all avenues because of the multiplier effect it's creating. And the most interesting thing about this closure is that many of my farmers today are farmers we recruited recently, and they are young graduates. What the government is doing will lead us right. And I can tell you, if the government sustains this thing, sky will not even be our limit.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women, and it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Next for us is business news. And here's our correspondent, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
As higher institutions continue to churn out thousands of graduates on a yearly basis, the labor market has become saturated, and job seekers are now at the mercy of the labor market with very few jobs to struggle for. In an attempt to change the narrative, government and other stakeholders in economic development have been enjoined to de-emphasize importance attached to academic qualification and embrace skill acquisition.
Academics give you a broad knowledge of what should be done. Then what you do enhance, if you are well trained and you acquire skill, I think you can do it better. You will do it better than someone who has not been trained.
And another development, following the case of the coronavirus in the country, owners of pharmaceutical stores and supermarkets are beginning to exploit the situation, as they have increased the prices of face masks and hand sanitizers up to 150% and 300%.
The reason for the increment is because of the coronavirus outbreak. Is actually artificial inflation. You know, suppliers, they can't get it.
The situation like this, what I expect those people selling the hand sanitizer to do is to even bring down the price that everybody in the streets, even those in the rural area, in the villages, can afford.
With business news, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
And newspaper review is next.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tebe, is right here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Jumai. Good morning,
We had a
Nigeria.
pleasant weekend.
Thank you, yes.
All right, so let's begin by taking a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. And, of course, it's a very busy front page, but the photographs on the front page actually tell the story of what took place yesterday, another day of explosions and fatalities. Principal, 16 others killed, 50 houses razed in Lagos gas plant explosion. Principal, 16 others killed, 50 houses razed in Lagos gas plant explosion. Details of the story can be found on pages 4 and 5. And below that, you have two headlines that we shall take. It says, the first one, attacks barring us from our farms. That's according to Plateau farmers. Details on page 11. Fake naval officer arrested for mutilating man's private parts. Details also on pages 4 and 5. And then we go up. The lead story, it's on the consequence of the coronavirus and indeed the spat between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Oil crash. Nigeria may lose $8.63 billion in 6 months. Recession looms, says LCCI, and that voice, of course, is joined by Nupeng and Pengasan. Recession looms, say LCCI, Nupeng and Pengasan. Operators canvass deregulation and economic policy review. 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate. MBF condemns fresh herdsmen attacks on Benue communities. MBF stands for Middle Belt Forum. We mustn't play politics with monarchy and security. That's according to Tambowal, governor of Sokoto State. And above the nameplate, aviation industry contributed 0.14% to GDP in 2019. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Details on page 31. Anti-Oshomole forces weakening APC and Buhari regime, Tinubu warns. With a rider, opponents soft pedal to offer party national chairman resignation option. Details inside at page 2.
And coming from the Nigerian pilot, just below the masthead, uncertainty over APC NEC meeting as appeal court decides today. You find that story on page 6. INEC to create more polling units before 2023 general elections. That story is on page 13. On a sad note, Black Sunday, with riders, scores killed, several others injured in Lagos explosion. 15 unidentified bodies recovered, fathers, mothers, sons dead. More than 50 buildings destroyed. Search and rescue operation ongoing. That's coming from NEMA. You find all this on page 8. And the picture story there showing the devastating effect of the explosion on the community. Some of the buildings affected by the Abole-Ado pipeline explosion in Lagos yesterday, raging inferno from the pipeline explosions. What is left of the gate of Bethlehem Girls College? And you see sympathizers conveying an unidentified corpse. Oshomole's opponents infected by 2023 ambition virus. And you find that story on page 7. At the bottom plate of the Nigerian pilot, why we are yet to pay school feeding cooks. Coming from the minister, Nigeria earned 669 billion from solid mineral sector in 2018. That's coming from NETI. President Trump tests negative to COVID-19. Insecurity, Northern Governors Forum to partner with ACF. 635 World Bank assisted projects executed in Ekiti. That's coming from the state governor, Fayemi. That story is on page 5. FEMA requires 125 billion to maintain federal roads annually. It's coming from the MD of FEMA. Wow.
Yes. Well, let's start on the sad note for the explosion in Lagos. Initially, indications were that they were not too certain about what caused the explosion, but it had occurred at an area called Abule-Ado, and it is along very close to the Festac, the trade fair, and the impact was felt as far as Agege. There are indications that gas outlets along the pipeline may have been complicit in what has been identified at that massive explosion. Meanwhile, casualties have said to be over 18, houses raised are over 50. The fire service, Federal Fire Service, Lagos Fire Service, and the fire service of the Nigerian Navy have been battling to put out the fire. There are indications also that the fire may have been heightened because of the leak from an NNPC pipeline. Apparently, there are suspicions that maybe some vandals may have visited that area. So a combination of gas, which is also very dangerous, and petroleum products, which is also very, very inflammable and volatile, must have caused that. Meanwhile, the result of that is that, first, the Lagos State Fire Emergency Services and NEMA are working around the clock to bring succor to the persons that are infected. COVID virus is causing unrest around the world. For us in Nigeria, there is good news. The second person that tested positive to COVID virus has now tested negative, and he has in fact been discharged. The index case from Milan has been improving, and he's likely to be discharged anytime this week or subsequently. However, there were indications of a case in Enugu. This resulted from a person who arrived from United Kingdom and arrived through Lagos. He went to Enugu through Owerri, and he has been placed in isolation. Results coming from the test conducted on her indicated that she has also tested negative. There was a case also that was reported in Damaturu, and that case also has tested negative. So far, it is only the Indes case that is waiting for total recuperation. Around the world, they play in the name of national unity.
All right. What the two major stories trending relate to the disaster yet again in Lagos. I think it's almost inevitable now that the authorities will have to take more drastic measures with regard to the co-location of gas retail outlets and residential or business premises. For that kind of inferno to have impacted the number of buildings affected yesterday, about 50 of those buildings, and you can see their roofs were blown off, their windows shattered, bricks falling out, cars and vehicles damaged, and unfortunately, at least 16 or so fatalities, including the principal or the administrator of a school. I mean, she was said to have been seeking to rescue some of the pupils of the school, but she had succeeded in pulling some of them out when, unfortunately, the roof of the building collapsed on her, and she died. So you have to ask yourself, why is it that, incendiary materials or highly inflammable materials are placed so close to residential or business premises? You saw what happened earlier in the year in Kaduna, with regard to, gas dispensing facility that went up suddenly, and then we lost, a highly skilled atomic or nuclear expert in that particular incident. And today again, I mean, we're all now having this review on mourning and bemoaning why all of these things will continue to persist. So the authorities must begin to take a look. I would not be surprised, for instance, if that gas plant, because they said the truck rammed into some gas cylinders, the local government will be collecting rates and levies from that particular place, and they say no, this one doesn't bother us, whether there's fire or no fire, or whether it's a threat, to human habitation, it's material. And yet, you find, if you look at some of the buildings, some of the videos that are circulated on social media, I mean, they look like what Americans refer to as condominiums. All buildings that are stacked, close to each other. So why then would you have such a facility, a gas facility, in that neighborhood? And as they also said, because initially the report was that the fire wasn't from an NNPC pipeline, but for you to also have built so close to an NNPC pipeline, that just tells you the kind of planlessness that continues to wreak these disasters year in, year out, if not week in, week out.
Yes, and we wake up to this sad tale every time, and the loss of lives and property in Nigeria is just becoming.
In fact, there's now a deliberate effort by the agency that is concerned, DPR. They are going around now to make sure that gas outlet selling points are away from residential areas. Many of them are actually unregistered, and across the country, they've been sealing many of them. But one other thing that needs to be emphasized is that the right of way for safety, for petroleum pipeline, must be respected. People build across some of these pipelines, and it is always a danger waiting to happen unless something is done drastically.
Yeah, well, in addition to the DPR, I think the DPR must work in collaboration with the fire service of both the state and the federal, to ensure that there is enforcement. Because the fire service, we have seen a great deal of improvement in terms of their equipment at the federal level, because now the federal fire service is even deploying fire engines to states. Trucks purchased by the federal government are being dispatched to the states. So DPR can do its own licensing once it assesses the potential environmental impact of the siting of a gas plant or a filling station or otherwise. But the fire service must also be taken along. To say, look, okay, we have surveyed this environment, this is what we see, these are the potential hazards, these are the ways you can prevent those things. Because when you see the way structures are constructed, it makes firefighting even a major challenge.
It's not only in such residential area. If you recall, so there have been instances of fire in the market, and one of the factors that has contributed to high rate of destruction is that when fire engine comes to the market, there's no right of way.
Right of way, because
there's serious obstruction, and it becomes very difficult. Sometimes people also gather there as spectators rather than even to help.
That's
and
right.
they become an obstacle.
No, they are videoing.
Yes, something has to.
This is a very, you know what this reminds me of in a sense, because this is even the scaled down version. We have lost people, we have lost property. When in 2002, January, it was a Sunday as well, January 27th, you had the bomb explosions at the Keja cantonment. It led to, of course, drastic measures. I mean, you had the number of fatalities arising from that particular incident of people who were fleeing. Who were fleeing from Oshodi and Mafoluku and then got drowned in the canal. So they have taken measures, and we haven't heard of any such incident again from Ikeja or its environment. So if you're having this particular incident, I think that it's a wake-up call for the authorities.
Exactly. Yes. And let's come now to our editorial. It's from the Blueprint newspaper, and it's on oil theft, a threat to our collective survival. Let me just read a little out of it. The revelation by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, that Nigeria loses 400 barrels of crude oil to thieves on daily basis is not only disturbing, but should also give the federal government some sleepless nights.
Well, because we want to talk about that, can we quickly talk about the loss that had happened in Kogi State? The family of Bello Ipemidia Ochi has announced the death of the mother of the governor of Kogi State, Hajia Hawa Ozigu Bello. She died at the ripe age of 101. President Muhammadu Buhari has since condoled Governor Bello and the people of Kogi State, stressing that she was a mother, a grandmother, and great-grandmother who actually spared her life to bring up her children and great-grandchildren in the proper way. Now, talking about the editorial, the theft of crude oil has been very endemic, and it is such a high-scale business that it goes over even in the high seas. And the Nigerian Navy had an uphill task combating that, and that was why, as part of their measure in monitoring the coast of Gulf of Guinea, they have been succeeded in reducing that tremendously. But there was also an initiative during in the past 4 years that a special signatory was supposed to be attached to Nigerian coal so that wherever it is stolen and sold, it can easily be identified. But the initial step is that if there is a commonwealth and it is being stolen, there must be a bold step to stem it. Otherwise, we now have a big challenge. Already, we are in very dire straits. Crude oil, by our last budget, was projected for $57. It's currently hovering between $30 and $35. And therefore, Nigeria is losing serious revenue. The positive thing is that there had been a deliberate attempt to diversify from our economy from total dependence on oil, and emphasizing agriculture and solid minerals. However, oil still forms a substantial part of the economy, and therefore any theft at that is in fact stealing opportunities for us as avenues of revenue to enhance development.
Okay, Bayo Tebi, we would like to thank you for being around, and we have seen stories also in the papers this morning from President Buhari, one of the well-wishers congratulating Odi Alfemo, who is 70 today. Odi Alfemo is a renowned poet, former president of the Association of Nigerian Authors. He's a journalist, he's an author, I mean, he's a fiery writer.
An author?
Yes, an activist.
Former secretary to Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
Private secretary to late Chief Obafemi Awolowo. So he's been a guest on Good Morning Nigeria on a number of occasions sometime in the past. So Odi Alfemo at 70, congratulations to you. Bayo, thanks a lot for being around.
Thank you too.
We also like to thank you. We'll see you again tomorrow. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we shall be dealing with the impact of coronavirus on foreign relations.
We'll be able to unite, irrespective of tribe, religion, and culture. So we keep preaching on love. That is the only binding force. Let us love ourselves, irrespective of where the person comes from.
You are about to witness the commencement of the most stimulating and compelling contest on television. This contest is only for the strong, the intelligent, and the talented. Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
As you know, kids' exam time is exam time for moms too. The child prepares intensely, so does the mom, taking care of every little thing. But germs can ruin it all. What if he falls ill on his exam day?
Every single day is important for kids. That's why they need Dettol soap. It protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday protection, everyday Dettol.
65 grams, now 150 naira.
Engineering skills and technology define the quality of television transmission output. Training and retraining of appropriate personnel on the management of modern equipment is therefore a key competition strategy in the dynamic television industry. NTA TV College, Jos, invites relevant desk officers to special engineering courses as follows. 1 week course on audio engineering, operations and maintenance. Date 20th to 24th April 2020. 1 week intensive course on electrical power, earthing, lighting, uninterrupted power supply UPS, inverter and solar system. Date 1st to 5th June 2020. 1 week intensive course on studio broadcast equipment and outside broadcast operation. Date 15th to 19th June 2020. 1 week course on new technologies, optical fiber, IP technologies, automation storage and wireless technology. Date 10th to 14th August 2020. The venue for all courses is NTA Television College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. Course fee 40,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
Some of the girls were having difficulties in their academics, and they now decided to ask us to help out. And we've decided to teach them other things, other skills. To invest in a woman is really to invest in a nation, because the women really are the heart of the family.
If you're just joining us, the program is Good Morning Nigeria on the NTA, and our conversation this morning is on coronavirus and foreign relations. And here's correspondent Oyeyemi Ajayi with a background report.
Coronavirus originated from the city of Wuhan in China. The ravaging coronavirus has since made Wuhan a shadow of its busy nature, spreading beyond mainland China to continents of the world. Inevitable migration and movement of people across the globe, this made it easier for coronavirus to tour countries. Europe, Asia, America, Africa, amongst others, are still battling the containment of coronavirus, which is no respecter of person or status, as many prominent individuals, including world leaders, have tested positive, proving that no country is entirely immune. Medical checks at entry ports of countries have been heightened, and some countries have made it a policy to quarantine every passenger from the affected countries for 14 days incubation period of the virus. The United States, on its part, has restricted travels from 26 European countries, a move that was protested by the European Union, though China has announced that the peak of the COVID-19 outbreak is over in its country. The world is still on high and red alert. Italy is perhaps worst hit in Europe, with many of its cities locked down till April. The World Health Organization has declared coronavirus a pandemic, hence every country must work hand in gloves to support each other to see its end. Today, many global events and diplomatic meetings have been suspended, not to mention cancellation of sporting events and even trade relations. Countries are enforcing restrictions to public gatherings as confirmed cases have risen globally, according to the World Health Organization. World leaders are cancelling foreign engagement and would rather stay put where they are safe or relatively so. As many say, the fear of coronavirus is now the beginning of wisdom, especially now that Europe is the new epicenter of the virus. Nigeria is not letting down our guards despite commendable efforts by government agencies at containing the virus. With 2 cases of one index and a contact, more precautionary measures are being taken, with screening at all entry ports of the country and the creation of more awareness. What impact is coronavirus having on foreign and diplomatic relations, and how can countries pull together to tame the pandemic? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will take on these issues shortly.
Many thanks, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background. Here with us in the studios now to discuss these issues in further detail. We'd like to welcome regular guest, Ambassador Joe Keshe, former Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning.
Also here with us in the studios is Ambassador Christy Mbono, one of Nigeria's few female ambassadors, career ambassadors, and also Nigeria's former permanent representative to the Africa-South America Cooperation in Caracas, Venezuela. Your Excellency, a pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for inviting me again.
Also here with us in the studios is Ambassador Morteza Rahimi Zarchi, is the Iranian ambassador to Nigeria. Your Excellency, a pleasure to have you with us on the program. All right, now we understand that Ambassador Zarchi has been in Nigeria well before the outbreak of the coronavirus, and indeed has been domiciled here since, of course, his country has also recorded quite a number of cases, including fatalities.
And also joining us via Skype from Birmingham in the United Kingdom is Ronsi Chidibe. He is the Executive Director of Project Pink Blue and a student currently studying at the Birmingham City University. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. If you can hear us, I believe we should begin with you. Can you give us a breakdown of the situation report now in the United Kingdom?
There's an audio failure there from Skype connection to Ronsi. I'm sure that our engineers will sort that out. And once they do, we'll return to him so that he gives us a lowdown, as it were, on what's playing out in the United Kingdom, which is also recording quite a number of cases of coronavirus. But let's return to our Abuja studios and Ambassador Zarchi. I mean, outside of China, Iran, and Italy have recorded some of the highest cases of coronavirus around the world, and indeed fatalities. What happened in Iran?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I want to good morning to Nigeria, and good morning to Abuja, and good morning to 36 states of Nigeria. Good morning to any Nigerian people everywhere. Men, women, youth, and kids. And this is the opportunity to thanks to everybody in Nigeria, government and nations during my mission. And in the end of my mission, I want to say about this virus and about the international relation between countries. As you said, and everyone knows, coronavirus doesn't need to passport and doesn't need to visa. Now more than 150 countries has coronavirus, unfortunately, and as the President Buhari told me, the corona may be affect not only our health, but our economy also. And this means we should be careful everywhere, in Nigeria, in Iran, in Italy, in China, in Europe, Asia, US, everywhere, African countries also. More than 20 countries, African countries now, has coronavirus, unfortunately. We should be careful, and Iran also be careful. Alhamdulillah, the coronavirus in Iran and under control, and we do best, our official man and our nation do best about that.
All right, Ambassador Zarche, the question I asked you is, look, Iran has a number of reported cases of persons who've tested positive, and you've had hundreds of persons who have also died from the coronavirus. What happened in Iran? Because the epicenter was Wuhan in China. What happened? How did Iran suddenly get on the map?
I want to say I don't have official information about that issue, but I come to here to talk about the why and how we can fight against the coronavirus. This is very important. We have a lot of experience about that. And our health organization is based in the region, in the east of the Mediterranean area. And everybody knows about that, and we can do some cooperation with the other countries. As you know, the first country was China, and we helped China in the beginning. And we should, in the beginning of this accident, and this is human issue. It is not only Iranian or China or Italian or European or African issue. This is human issue and health issue, and we should help everybody. And this is very important for that.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we'll be returning to our Skype in Birmingham in the United States, where Runsi Chidibe is waiting. Well, can you give us a situation report where you are in the United Kingdom in respect of the coronavirus? What is happening there now?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so far, education has been going on well. I mean, in my university, we've been having normal lectures, but some of these things is going to change because so far, the university, both the vice chancellor and a whole bunch of other public health professionals are having a series of meetings, and many universities in the UK are already switching from live lectures to online lectures and distance learning, so for like London School of Economics and so many other schools in the UK. But my university is still having normal lectures. And people have been traveling into the UK without any restriction. People have also been traveling out. Painfully, there hasn't been the kind of check that you have in Nigeria, like in the UK, where people check temperature of once people arrive from countries that have index cases and all the rest. For instance, like for a population of Birmingham, which is just about 1 million plus, we already have 6 cases in this city. And then compared to, a population like, Lagos that have over 20 million and you just have 2 cases. So it's kind of scary here. People are really afraid. The panic is really increasing every single day. Like if you check the internet, you see a whole bunch of news everywhere, and people are really, really afraid. On Saturday, we really experienced panic shopping in the city. I went out to shop myself, and practically I was not allowed to buy more than four items, 4 items of the same thing It was really, really scary. The whole shop was deserted. Like, people have packed up all the tissues and all the sanitizers can't be found, anywhere around the shopping mall. So it's really kind of scary. Nobody knows what's going to happen because of.
Okay. Ronsi, you can continue. I mean, you were talking about panic buying in Birmingham. Could you continue with that? Do you have face masks and sanitizers also available? Because, I mean, you will see some video shots. The shelves are virtually empty. What are you seeing in Birmingham?
Okay, yeah, so for face mask, it's really not scarce. I personally saw some face masks, in the shopping malls. But for sanitizer, people really can't buy sanitizer. But I would also say some institutions in the UK are really doing well, especially like for my university, Birmingham City, they provided sanitizers free to all students and staff, which is really good. And you can even take as much as you want. But for food items like toilet tissue, like other canned food, we're almost like, people are just scrambling for it in the shopping malls. And that is really, really scary because it means that people don't know what's going to happen, especially with the current 2 days ago, Sir Patrick Wallace, who is the chief scientific advisor to the UK, actually said that UK is considering to implement what they call the herd immunity. The herd immunity, it's a way whereby you're trying to tackle a virus and then you get about 60% of the population of the UK to actually get the coronavirus, so they can be immune, to it, thinking that this virus might also repeat itself next year. So it's a kind of strategy that it's public health analysts are really not comfortable about because it doesn't have any evidence to prove that this could be a better strategy for it. So this is kind of also very scary because the UK already have a very strong healthcare system, unlike maybe other developing countries like Nigeria and otherwise. But also, apart from having that very strong healthcare system, more health workers are now being affected by coronavirus, which is also scary because if you live with a nurse or maybe a doctor and he is infected, he could probably also infect other patients and also the hospital, which is the place where people go for care.
Tell us the panic in shopping and is there a lockdown? Do you foresee a lockdown or restriction of movement in where you are in Birmingham or in UK, the whole of UK in the near future?
Yes, there is absolutely. Everybody really foresee a kind of lockdown because people are really thinking, especially public health analysts, are really thinking that the UK government is slightly slow in containing this virus. For instance, so many countries around Europe is already an epicenter. I myself am studying transforming and leading in healthcare. So we have a whole bunch of this conversation, in the uni. And you see many countries in Europe have closed down schools, have closed down sporting activities like sporting events, mass gathering, like churches have been closed down. Travel restrictions have been implemented and domestic but that is not happening currently in the UK. People still moving to Heathrow without being checked their temperature. So people are really, really scared that might be a lockdown, based on trying a modeling of herd immunity, which does not have a strong scientific background for a new virus like the coronavirus. So we foresee a lockdown, but nobody knows what's going to happen. Since it's going to take more time, to really find out a vaccine for the coronavirus. But also, apart from that, many universities across the UK are taking some very good steps to try to see if they could switch from live lectures to probably online lectures.
Onsi, thank you very much. We'll still keep you on hold and then return to you because of this conversation. Let's bring in now two of Nigeria's career ambassadors, Ambassador Joe Keshi and Ambassador Mbono. Ambassador Keshi, what's your reading of what's happening around the world?
Well, you recall when 9/11 happened, it was said that the world changed. I think at the end of this health crisis, we might see that there's another change in the world and in our behavior, particularly health behavior. And you could also, we now have a new language, social distancing, which has come into the vocabulary. You would also notice that every country is almost acting individually on its own to protect itself. Last night, at the Democratic candidates, when the Democratic candidates debated, Joe Biden made a statement that were he in charge, he would have brought together experts from around the world and leaders to discuss this issue and see how collectively the world will react, to it. That was not what was done initially. And understandably, China, to start with, was not forthcoming in letting the world know what was going on in its country. But when people got to know, or when countries got to know, I don't think that China was given the necessary assistance that was required to nip the crisis in the bud. By the time even WHO, by the time WHO started sending people, it was almost a month or so into the crisis. The United States did the same thing. They sent people, But what has happened, or what we should learn from this, is that contrary to what happened when President Trump, you can't talk about this crisis without talking about the gentleman himself. When he came to power some 3.5 years ago, he made it clear that his policy was concerned only primarily with the United States. But what has happened today, that we know that we are completely interdependent. Contrary to what some people think, that globalization is enough and we should destroy, or rather it should be limited. The fact is that we are certainly far more interconnected than we imagine, that somebody can fly from China and get into Nigeria and has a crisis that affects the Nigerian population. So it just tells us that whether we like it or not, the world must still learn to work together as a unit, because this crisis has exposed the fact that when crises like this happen, you have no idea where it is going to end, where it's going to land. And today, over 129 countries are already affected. And regrettably, I fear that quite a number of countries might not be able to get the required assistance, because a country like the United States is actually in crisis. It has exposed the weakness of the health system in the United States itself. So the big powers that we are looking up upon sometimes, from the development countries in Africa, from that perspective, we should just understand that there's a need for international cooperation. There's a need for us to open up very quickly, because we are far more interconnected than we assume. We can all just sit in Abuja and wake up one morning, somebody from Iran, Italy, and in fact, the fact that Europe is today the epicenter should worry us in this country.
That's right.
Because quite a number of people come from that part of the world. Italy, you all know very well, there are large Nigerian population, and we have not put a ban on traveling, so people are still, traveling at least minimally. So the point I'm trying to make is that we should get back to working as a unit globally. There should be more cooperation and more sharing on information as quickly as this type of crisis occurs, because in doing that, it helps to save quite a number of lives, and the Chinese, I guess, they've learned their lesson, and so are the rest of us.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Keshi. Ambassador Christian Mbono, they said coronavirus has sort of put globalization in intensive care. an uncharted territory. So how does it affect, what is the impact on foreign policy between Nigeria and other nations?
Let me first of all say something that is bothering me. When this issue came up, the countries that were really in it were living in denial, i.e. China. If they had come out immediately, this problem would have been nipped in the bud. Until recently, even Donald Trump was in denial. I watched and I followed his press conference where he was trying to say this country had been banned minus the UK. Somebody from the audience reminded him that within one day, and included, I was looking at a queue in one of the cities in the US. Yes. The queue was just going like this. There was nothing, practically nothing on the shelf. Panic buying. So it affected relations. But so far, so good for my country. I think it's only Atlanta, Consulate of Nigeria in Atlanta, that issued a notice. They're just telling you biometrics, which you know is contact, will be suspended for the meantime. But you can still get your ETC, travel, in case there's an emergency. So it's affected everything. It's affected. The epicenter is no longer China or Iran or South Korea. It's also Europe. And you know how many people we have there. And they come in. So far, I don't know. I think we have to really be grateful because they are still coming. There is no travel ban from Nigeria, and I just read that they commended Nigeria, I think in Switzerland, using Nigeria as a case study to have been able to manage this pandemic. They say they have one in Enugu, they have there, but so far, so good.
Ambassador Bono, thank you very much. I'm going to stay with you both ambassadors. They will also bring in the ambassador of Iran to Nigeria later in the conversation. Look, Ambassador Keshi, you talked about the analogy with regard to 9/11 and how 9/11 changed the world. And we have seen the consequences almost 20 years later as to how first the United States decided to alter its own relations and then how to prosecute the war against terror, which continues. But you have also talked about interdependence that the coronavirus has revealed, interdependence of nations around the world. But at the same time, we are seeing unilateral moves by countries. What exactly is playing out here? I mean, you recognize the inevitable interdependence of the globe, and yet you are seeing, some would say, panicky measures by individual states in closing up their borders and just acting to protect themselves in the meantime, while the rest of the world finds a solution to this crisis.
I think partly it is because of the kind of leaders we have at the top of this crisis in a number of countries. Again, if you go back to the United States, where the president, number one, do not believe a number of things that scientists, say to him. Number two, where he does not believe in cooperating with the rest of the world. Look, he imposed a ban on United States key allies without consultation. In the days gone by, that would never happen. They will pick up the phone and virtually talk to the key allies around the world and say, look, this is what we are going to do. And that will be done.
He said that was going to take a lot of time, and he had no time.
But that's not that time for you. He had all the time to deny, but not the time to pick up a phone to say, look, we are going to do this, and everybody discusses it. You have the United Nations. I'm not even sure. You see, you guys monitor the United Nations. You have the United Nations, who I'm not sure called a meeting to say, look, how do we react to this or issue a guideline. You have the WHO, too, that was slow in coming to terms with the reality of this. It took CNN to declare the crisis a pandemic before the World Health Organization thought it was time to do that. And I believe they did that simply because the United States, the CNN and the rest of the global networks have started describing the crisis as a pandemic and the rest of it. So you can see, but the fact still remains that whether we like it or not, this crisis again has exposed the fact that we are far more interconnected, almost interrelated than we imagined. you know, we can sit down here as we are doing now and say, look, thank God we are safe. But the truth of the matter is that no, until the crisis is over, we are not safe. Because last night it was announced that a case was a suspected case. It's in Enugu. You now have to say that a number of people could probably have been, affected that needs to be checked. And from there, if everybody is not captured, it could begin to, spread. But let's go back to how we dealt with Ebola globally. And that was the point Joe Biden was making last night, that they mobilized leadership around the world and sent in massive assistance. You could also say they sent this massive assistance because it was an African country and they didn't want it to come to, come to them. And I have a feeling that this was why we didn't take China serious when it started. In any case, in a far remote area of China. But I'm saying, when we got to know that it was far more serious than initially thought of in China, the world should have rallied to provide assistance to China. Look, again, it's not a joke, but this is what I'm trying to say. Last night, Equatorial Guinea here donated $2 million to help China fight the crisis or the disease. But you know why? Because somebody from China came to Equatorial Guinea and was dictated to have the virus. So now Equatorial Guinea woke up to the reality that, listen, we need to nip this in there, not here. And so gave $2 million and said, you guys sort out your problem and keep us out of this. So for me, this is exactly what I believe that the world should do. We should go back to what it used to be before, where leaders saw the world beyond their own borders, where they appreciated the fact that one crisis in another country could actually affect the rest of the world. And you could see we are not at the epicenter, we are not even close. But one way or the other, it's also beginning to affect us here. I don't know when last I shook your hands, but I couldn't do that today.
That's right.
and everywhere you go to now, you are given a sanitizer as if you are not clean. But talking of this sanitizer thing, we should also realize that the danger for us is that in NTA, you can afford to give sanitizers and other places. Who is providing sanitizer to those in the markets, motor parks, and all these areas that are crowded with large number of workers that have no offices? For us in this country, I think that's where the danger lies.
Okay, thanks. Well, Ambassador Mbonu, give us a sense, from your own perspective, of what is happening in terms of international relations. Ambassador Keshi has already outlined his to say, look, we're seeing a failure of global leadership in the first instance, despite our interconnectedness, and so on and so forth. But what does this do to foreign relations? The ban on foreign travels for a number of countries is put at 30 days, but beyond that, what is going to happen? Are we going to have relationships that have been damaged almost beyond repair, or that could stoke a great deal of suspicion, particularly, say, between the EU and the US? And how should we watch our own steps in terms of what we do or what we initiate as our own measures against the prevention of coronavirus?
The arrival of President Trump on the scene affected so many things. This is America First policy. Everything that could have bring the cohesion, the man is destroying. Everything that could have brought us together is destroying. It's America First. That's why this pandemic has also hit him and showing him that we must come together. Let me even take it, my own perspective is that AU, because we are not the epicenter, we should now come together. We shouldn't do it, I think Ghana has imposed ban, South Africa too, Nigeria has not. We should now come together and take a decision to protect our continent. We are not the epicenter. Incidentally, the EU, that might like to even start visiting us, we should also put a ban because they have it. Fortunately, we don't. So the relations that is it's affecting everything. And it stems from the president of US. It's my own. Everybody do it your own. And it's not going to work. There must be pulling together. How have they funded WHO? How has he even funded UN? WHO is now opening, they open a program, I can't remember the name now, a fund where individual can now put money to help developing countries, you know. So if they can properly fund this agency, the WHO, properly, and this will come from the US, I think they will be able to help the developing countries. Talking about sanitizer, I listened to a CBN program, they put, I think it was on the 11th, where one, Emzo, is the woman that, you know, Emzo Pharmaceutical, she was asking, why do you bring sanitizer from China? This is a place in Nigeria where we can produce this thing at no cost and distribute. Yes, we have it in the mosques, we have it in the churches. Like His Excellency rightly said, do they have it in the market? Don't we go to the market? Don't we buy stuff? These are the places where we need to put these things, and they are simply not affordable. Why bring sanitizer from China, the epicenter, where we can locally produce this thing at no cost? Even that, the lady was really, really livid with anger. He said, we don't recognize our people. Give them this contract. If they are producing it at $2 from China, they can do it at 500 naira here. Because we have pandemic, we have problems. And this will be the way they will all chip in. If you don't have to take 2 million like Equatorial Guinea to go and put in that fund, you can produce mass production of sanitizer, because it's one of the ingredients that is really, really essential now, and it's not affordable. So these are my perspectives, you know.
Well, you talked about hand sanitizer. It's actually very expensive. Most people in the marketplace can't even buy it. And still talking about the U.S. foreign policy, do you think that China sort of refused to, you know, alert the world on what was happening in Wuhan because of the trade war and U.S. foreign policy? Do you think it sort of affected them announcing it on time?
I don't want to say certain things on air. You know, the country is always, you know, say closeted, always in denial. Because if they had come out, like I can assure you, if, say, this thing happened in UK, you know, open society, they would have come out earlier. They kept it. They say it was no issue. It was, and then when they became overwhelmed, it was already late. You know, many casualties. It has started moving from their place to Iran, to South Korea. Of course, they couldn't hide it any longer. And again, American, I don't know whether it's an agency that said something, that the military from the US brought it. Yes. I think the Chinese. Yes. You know, it's neither here nor there. Yes. There is a pandemic, there's a problem. This is not the time to pass buck. This is the time for the international community to come together and work together. You know, like I said, thank God our continent, we are still, to some extent, not the epicenter. And our people, our leaders, should immediately have emergency AU meeting. How do we safeguard our people? And how do we safeguard our continent?
I was wondering, Ambassador Mbano, thanks a lot. I mean, you've mentioned the need for the AU to get in. There are a number of specialized agencies in these international organizations. I mean, the WHO is one of the specialized agencies of the UN. For us in ECOWAS, we have what is called the West African Health Organization, WAHO. I don't think I've heard the statement from them on this crisis.
No, they have actually, they met
I haven't. But if there is, now I want to ask you the question so you can elaborate further on this in terms of what they have done. They of course, were also quite active during the Ebola time. Issued their own statements and gave their own advisory on what needs to be done. We are seeing a number of measures. Ghana is taking its own measure. Senegal is taking its own measure. So what would you expect to see, Ambassador Keshi, coming from these specialized agencies of regional health institutions such as WAHO?
Well, I happen to know that they met recently here in Abuja because A Nigerian is the head of the organization currently. They met here in Abuja and agreed to raise $50 million US, to prepare for for when the virus will visit us and so on. Actually, I remember giving him some names because they were supposed to raise this money as quickly as possible. I gave him, at his request, some names of people he could reach out to see whether they can raise the money. Look, I think that on one hand, we are slow in reacting. On the other hand, globally, I believe that there is so much panic. For example, it's been said all over the place that the mask you are wearing will protect the medical people if they're in the hospital, but it will not protect you outside from getting the virus, because that was not what it was intended to do. The way we have handled the travel ban, even from countries that are not seriously affected, again does not show that that is the correct solution to the crisis. But guess what? Look, it came and it is spreading so fast that leaders have no choice but to operate under the principle of everyone for himself, God for us all, in order to protect their citizens. Because again, if you go back to the United States, almost immediately it started to spread. And the lackluster attitude of President Trump, there were already indications that this could bring down Trump, this could make him lose the election and the rest of it. And the gentleman woke up and decided that, look, I needed to do something, and he put a team together under the vice president. But the fact is, I think that a number of these, even if we are not getting the information as to what they are doing, I believe that a number of these regional organizations are doing the best that they can. Look, I don't think the globe has experienced this in the last 60 or 70 years. I knew that as a child there was question of flu all over the world in the I think 60s or thereabout, or I heard about it. But not in our lifetime have we seen a thing like it that has created so much panic and destabilized completely everything you can imagine. As she rightly said, even in families, So if your wife has it like the Canadian Prime Minister, you can imagine that they probably have distanced themselves even in the house. So this is a phenomenon that came to us unexpectedly, and from what is going on, the world is not prepared. But the lesson is that every country now has accepted that there's strong weakness in its own health system that needs to be fixed.
Okay.
And I think that when we all begin to do that, we might be prepared next time for because this would also happen again and again to the world. But I go back to what I've said before, that if China has been forthcoming early enough, if the world has provided assistance to China to first of all understand what was going on in China at that time and provided all the necessary assistance, perhaps the epidemic will not, or the pandemic will not be as spread as it is today. But regionally, I know that the African institutions are cooperating with the WHO and working to raise funds to prepare countries around the region, to be ready.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Keshi. We'll now return to Ambassador Moteze Rahimi Zarchi. High-profile cases across the world. You've had a high-profile member of your cabinet who has tested positive to the virus. What is Iran doing to curtail the spread of the disease right now?
The Iranian official and the nation of Iran is working about the control of this virus, corona. And I think we are in the top of this situation, and as I know, around 600 has died. 600 has died, unfortunately, and we pray for them. And more than 7,000 has died in the world. 6,000, more than 6,000 also. More than 6,000, around the 7,000 in the world has died. As the ambassador told, we need in this situation cooperation more than before. Every nation and every countries. We should come more close because this crisis is not for one country or one nation. This is an epidemic for all of the part of the world. As you know, as ambassador told, how the situation of the European countries now, U.S. and others. I think the Nigerian nations and the government should be careful also, because this is very, very important. Unfortunately, we don't have some issue in the Nigeria now, but in Nigerian people also, the students in Nigerian in Iran also, as I have information about that. All of them in the health is good, and their family, and other Nigerian also in Iran health is good, and Iranian in Nigeria, in the embassy and other part of the Nigeria, alhamdulillah, their health is good.
Have you placed a travel ban on Iranians going back to Iran from Nigeria?
Now the flight is not very easy to come back to Iran, but we have some flight.
What? Tell us, how much cooperation are you getting from other countries? I mean, we understand for the first time Iran has approached the IMF, for a financial facility, but how much support are you getting from elsewhere, since your country is still under sanctions?
Yes, I have some helping from our neighbors, from other friend countries. Most than about 10 countries we received helping from them, and we help also other countries. And in the beginning, I have a meeting with the ambassador of China in the beginning of this crisis, and he told me the foreign minister, Dr. Muhammad Jawad Zarif, was the first of the person that make a call with the Excellency Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, and this means the nations and the government needs to help all together each other. Fortunately, there is a lot of helping, and we need also. We request something from the WHO, and unfortunately, the sanction from the U.S. unfortunately affect this crisis in Iran, and we need and request the nations and governments against this sanction. The sanction is against the human rights and the human health.
Okay, I still want to ask you this question. I mean, back to probably the original question we asked. Do you have a lot of travel between Iran and China?
We have traveled everywhere. Iran is a free country, not only China, in U.S., in UAE, in every country, in African countries. We have a lot of, I think this is politics. This is politics, and this is, we have a lot of traveling to African countries also.
I think what Kingsley means is, do you have a lot of business, people going for business in China because of the high scale of infection in your country?
That's right. How do you explain that?
How do you explain that?
we have good relation with China. You know, everybody knows our relation, Iranian relation and China relation, Russia relation, and our neighbors relation is very good. It means the trade relation also is good. But until now, we don't know where this coronavirus come from everywhere, from the China or from other side. Somebody talk about this is biologic. I don't know about that.
Well, the WHO hasn't indicated whether it's a biological warfare. Ambassador Keshi.
I just want to say to the ambassador that in the 60s and the 70s, it was a taboo. In fact, it was a major issue in the United States to talk about communism or to talk of anybody traveling to communist China or to Russia. There was a McCarthy, thing in the United States. But it took an invitation from the Chinese to a table tennis team in the United States to open up relations with China. It was called a ping-pong diplomacy. I'm just wondering, because there's a rise on a daily basis of the situation in Iran. And I know that the United States has offered assistance which your people have rejected. Is it possible to have coronavirus diplomacy in which Iran uses the acceptance of the help provided by the United States to open up a window to discuss other matters? Because that's what we talk about, the absence of leaders who want to really build cooperation around the world.
First of all, I think they should first step from them. They should finish the sanction against us, and we can talk about everything. We don't have any problem for discussion with the U.S. and with the Trump also. But they finished the discussion, and we are ready to discuss with them about everything. About everything.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know, Ambassador Keshi, you're bringing in a very interesting dimension, with regard to corona diplomacy, in the light of all of this. But in that one, you have to also throw into the mix, the uranium enrichment program, which is the one of the major sources. And of course, if you're having this kind of diplomacy, are you in talks? Just hold on a second, Your Excellency.
I want to request all of nations on all governments against the sanctioning.
No, well, that's a sanctions regime. Are you in talks at all with Israel on this? Because Israeli scientists are said to be developing some vaccine.
Yes.
Is your government in consultation with the Israelis? I mean, whether back channels or otherwise?
Oh, I don't have any.
All right. Okay. Ronsi Chidebe, still with us via Skype from Birmingham City in the UK. Ronsi, we are back on the screen. We have seen some, again, extraordinary measures being taken, mostly in Europe. Schools have been shut down. The stadia were all empty at the weekend. And just some hours ago, New York City and Los Angeles decided to shut bars and restaurants indefinitely. What's happening in Birmingham City in addition to the panic buying that you have witnessed?
Okay, another very interesting thing that is really happening has to do with serious mental issue. People are really, apart from the whole conversation around panic buying, there is huge fear, there is anxiety about this disease, especially among the older people, also among people who already have some preconditions like cancer. Because older people and people living with some chronic disease are at higher risk, of having COVID-19. Same is applicable to children and teenagers, and also people who are helping to respond to this, like doctors and other healthcare providers. So it's really kind of worrisome, because people right now are really so afraid. Like, I was in a meeting with a few older friends, and they were really showing serious concern about their own mental health, considering that they are already aged and they usually visit the hospital always. So I really think that in as much as the world is trying to look at both economic impact, look at all the other impact across different sectors, it's also very important to see how we all can manage our anxiety and manage what we look on the internet and what we check out on the internet. Providing different strategies. I think this is also a very good time for everyone to be of good support to one another. While different governments are collaborating, as ambassadors have recommended. But we all as people in our community, we have to find different ways to reach out to people that you trust. Be mindful of what you see on social media. I know Facebook and Twitter are really, really putting out a whole bunch of information, WhatsApp as well. But people have to be very, very mindful of what they read and limit the time they spend on some of these social media, just to enable them to have a good mental well-being.
Well, thank you so much. We'll get back to you in the course of the conversation. We'll take a break right now. When we return, the conversation continues.
My name is Yemi Adetunji, the COO downstream of NNPC. Ever since the closure of the borders, we have seen a marked reduction of about 10% in terms of the evacuation of what you call loadouts of PMS, which equates to about 6 million liters per day, essentially because of the border closure, because of certain aspects we've also done as NNPC, working with our sister organizations, sister agencies, Nigerian Customs, DPR, Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and other agencies, and also what we call Operation White, which is an intervention we have put in place to trace and track every molecule of petroleum products as they arrive in country through the vessels, as they move through the depots, and as they are evacuated with trucks out of the depots.
You people sell imported materials here. As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thanks for rejoining us, and we're going to take our tweets now as Nigerians are joining the conversation. We'll begin with Utolo Sunday, whose tweets, coronavirus pandemic, if not quickly contained, can cause global economic recession, considering how nations are shutting down their international travel to other nations. May God help us.
Bashiru tweets, now the most effective strategy countries are now temporarily pursuing is a lockdown. Nigeria should not be different. We should not play the usual nice guy in the room by trying to keep our doors wide open. We should pursue a policy of prevention until the world finds a way out.
And Badamasi Haruna Adamu tweets, the pandemic is a global disease which has affected the interactions between and among nations across boundaries.
Festus Akimboyewa, with the U.S. placing travel restrictions on EU countries, the UK, and vice versa because of coronavirus, the disease is bound to put a strain on foreign relations. Political tit-for-tat will not benefit anybody. Instead, countries should work together to fight the spread of the virus.
Adejumo Paul Olabumi tweets, Ghana has shut its door against countries badly hit by COVID-19. What is Nigeria waiting for?
Mike Ayakwa, the novel coronavirus is a deadly disease that needs world collaborative efforts to stamp it out entirely. Countries should unite to fight the menace. Foreign relations we are talking about now is networking and information on discoveries of vaccines.
And Phil L. Jeffrey Kelly tweets, Ghana just got hit some days ago and they have already closed the door to their country. Why can't Nigerian government do same if they are really concerned about its spread?
Titus Mondenok. Now, it goes to tell us that we should invest more in health infrastructure than in war arsenal. Very simple.
Yes. Chris Simon, the pandemic has made many countries to place travel ban on others. With this, the economies of many nations are in danger. However, social-political ties among nations are declining. Just of recent in Uganda, an airplane which conveyed foreign delegates to the country for international conference was turned back because of the fear of the virus.
Bas Emmanuel Tino, that's the handle. COVID-19 has already affected the price of crude oil, and this is a major concern and a wake-up call for Nigeria to take the issue of diversification of its economy much more seriously.
Daily Jack Solomon, take it or leave it. As the coronavirus outbreak unfolds, it is clear that the public health emergency has further strained and already fraught U.S.-China relations and underscored questions about China's place in an increasingly interconnected world, a big blow to China's image.
Amogbala Humbabs has a tweet there. We also have another one from Hassan Adamu. Hassan Adamu is tweeting that COVID-19 pandemic is a global issue which affects the world's economy and security. Therefore, the Nigerian government needs to do everything within its powers to protect Nigerians by suspending all flights from Europe into our country.
Ibrahim Modu Aju tweets, Nigeria should restrict flights from high-infected coronavirus countries, especially China, Italy, and Iran. We need not only preventive measures from another influx of the virus to Nigeria.
Law Alpha say, coronavirus has indeed shaken the very foundations on which foreign relations stand. My prayer remains that a quick and immediate solution be found.
And unbreakable, it has really affected international relations badly, whereby nations are afraid of interacting, which has led to crash in the price of crude oil. Countries like Nigeria, who depend on oil, should employ strategies to diversify its economic policy.
Abdul Hamid Ado, even though Nigeria is here to impose a travel ban on most impacted countries, its efforts to check the disease at entry points, public sensitization and live updates are commendable measures so far. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. You know, Jumai, while we were reviewing the papers, the story, of course, about the disaster that took place in Lagos yesterday was also in the news. We have an update. We're going to have to take a short break from this conversation now on the impact of coronavirus on foreign relations to be with our correspondent who is live at the scene of the inferno yesterday. You can see Jennifer Igwe there on the right side of your screen. That incident is said to have taken no fewer than 15 or 16 lives, with over 50 houses destroyed in the process. Jennifer, give us what is the latest from the scene of that havoc yesterday.
Thank you. The fire is still on. It seems to be a stubborn one because all through yesterday and even late into the night and early hours of this morning, the firemen were still trying to put it out, but it's still there. And at this particular spot where the explosion happened and linked to where they have the pipeline. And we also have a small crowd around here this morning, in fact, of the measures by the police to keep them away, because this place, there's a market close to this place. So keeping the crowd away, it's going to be a serious problem. And the governor has just arrived to have on-the-spot assessment of what happened. And later today, we'll still have more rescue operation happen here, and the firemen, they are still stationed, like I said when I started, and that's the update. But those whose houses were affected are still trying to salvage what they can from their buildings, and right now some of the agencies in Lagos are also going around to try to ascertain how many buildings were actually affected.
Jennifer, you've been on ground since the incident happened yesterday, and we heard that you just returned. What about the survivors? You know, where are they being treated, and is there any form of succor for them?
So most of those who are rescued are right now at the hospital, Naval Hospital. They are still receiving treatment. And those, like I said, affected, whose buildings were affected, are trying to salvage what they can and looking for alternative arrangements. We are yet to get in touch with the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency to find out if they are taking some to their resettlement center. But this area, most people who live around there own their buildings. So most of them have relocated to their relatives. And the Red Cross were on ground yesterday to take care of some, because there was a child whose mother was badly injured, and they had to take custody of the child. So for those who are still in the hospital, they are still there at the Naval Hospital receiving treatment. But others have moved to other places and moved some of the things from their homes that they can.
Jennifer, thank you. I mean, when you look at those rooftops and the damage to the structures, I mean, it looks like a tornado just swept through that environment. Initial reports we got yesterday said 15 unidentified bodies. Do you have any update, for instance, as to whether there's now been positive identification of those bodies or whether that process is ongoing? That's one question. Next question would be, what do you know at this time as to the primary cause of the fire, which then, of course, caused the conflagration of the pipeline that wreaked so much havoc that we are still seeing in the background?
Okay, for your first question, most of the agencies yesterday did not want to really give a confirmation on the casualty figure, but I spoke to an official of the National Emergency Management Agency, and he related with me based on what the bodies they recovered and those they rescued that he saw, and he said they were 15. And that was because there's a school close to this place called the Bethlehem Girls High School. I heard that the girls and the principal were having early morning mass when that explosion happened, so they were affected. At least at the spot yesterday, it was confirmed that the principal died. But I later found out from the National Emergency Management Agency official that the students that were also in the chapel died. But a concrete confirmation for all that figure and identification of bodies have not been ascertained. But there was a family of 4 yesterday who live also close to the spot where the explosion happened. They were about to go to church, and they just got into their vehicle when the explosion happened. The 4 of them died on the spot. That's yesterday. So the bodies of those 4, at least we saw them yesterday. Then for the second question, what was your second question again? I didn't get it again.
I'll help you. The second question relates to what was the primary cause of the fire? I mean, people were saying that it was a truck that rammed into some gas cylinders at some gas dispensing plant, and then the thing caught fire, and then there's a nearby NNPC pipeline. What happened?
Okay, yesterday, because of the magnitude of the devastation and the vibration from the explosion, because I live a bit far from here, but right from where I live, my house shook. And those who lived as far as Badagry, even one of the officials working here yesterday talked about how his house shook. And I know somebody who also lives far away from here who told me they were in church and the the bulbs in the church exploded. And that was how bad the vibration and the impact of the explosion was. And the NNPC group managing director was here yesterday, the commissioner of police, and what they said was that a truck got stuck close to where the NNPC pipeline system 28 or so was. So because of that, there was an explosion, and that the truck had explosives in it, and there were so many gas cylinders around there. That was what triggered the explosion. But Nigerians, people were already concluding that it was a bomb. It was difficult even trying to get people away from here because they were already all around shouting that it was a terrorist attack. But when the group managing director of NNPC came and the commissioner of police, he confirmed that it was the truck that was loaded with explosives that got stuck close to the pipeline point that caused the explosion.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, for the updates there. We thank you. I believe we'll be getting back to you in the course of news presentations today. Thank you so much for your input. Now we'll come back to the studio here. Ambassador Keshi, coronavirus affecting foreign relations. What is the way forward?
Well, I think the way forward is that countries are managing it as much as they can. But again, I say that there's a need for international cooperation, because this is not affecting just one country. It's affecting the whole globe. The world economy, it's, experiencing serious strain itself. The price of oil, for example, closely related but not directly related, because the price of oil is going down, not so much because of the virus, because of the Chinese, the Russians and the Saudi Arabia, struggle for supremacy. But at the end of the day, we still need to learn how to cooperate with one another, because the world is closely related. We are interdependent. If the supply chains are affected as it is today, all over the world. This is why you're having panic buying, in a number of countries. And if it happens here or in Africa, we are also going to experience the same shortages. More because it will be difficult for export or import into this country.
Well, so Ambassador Keshi, you can let me respectfully say, make your preachment, but let me remind you of what you said. A very opposite opening statement that, look, 9/11, the day the world changed.
True.
So coronavirus probably is going to have as dramatic an impact,
if not more,
on global relations. So you are preaching interdependence and the need for us to cooperate, and here we are. Are we not saying, for instance, say in Europe, which has always been the symbol, if you like, of economic integration, political integration, and suddenly countries are taking their own individual decisions. They are back to unilateralism, and doesn't that tell us that coronavirus has changed?
Remember I said that not the suddenness, but the aggressive spread of the virus has forced everybody to live under the principle that I said, every man for himself, God for all. So first, because leaders have to survive. You must look at that leaders need to survive. When the people, even here, we keep saying the president has not spoken to us about it all, and so on. People are, posting and commending the Ghanaian leader for the leadership shown on this issue. So when leaders are faced with this emergency problem, they're expected to react as quickly as they can. Then the issue of cooperation will become later. But I'm saying at the end of the day,
we still have to come back to that.
But let me just put this, that, coronavirus forces us to do so many things. In Uganda, for example, the president has postponed the election till 2023, when he should have left this year.
That's right. And of course, he remains in office. He remains in office. Ambassador Keshi, thanks a lot. Now, Ambassador Bono, let's come to you. We have also seen Nigeria's own reaction. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, addressed members of the diplomatic community, indicating measures that Nigeria is taking. Of course, those measures have ensured that we're still we're still relatively safe, even though, all hands are on deck, as the saying goes. What does this tell us with additional steps that we need to take, considering that, I mean, as they would say, if it were the other way around, coronavirus is paralyzing, if not killing Europe?
Let me first of all commend the synergy between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and that of Health. They've worked together. The Ministry of Health, the Honorable Federal Minister of Health, have been on top of this problem, sensitizing, awareness. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also been doing its bit, to reassure the diplomatic community of what the government is doing. And I have to give kudos to Nigerian government. They've done a lot. Maybe because they learned a lot of lessons from Ebola. But what I want to say is, let us jettison this ad hocism. Ad hoc thing. Lassa fever is a perennial problem. Why haven't we gotten vaccine to prepare people? Every year we do, you see this ad hoc work. So what I will say is, to make sure we nip this finally, and then there must be, they have the national something for, this agency for disease control.
Nigeria Center for Disease Control.
They must be properly funded. We usually don't give money to our, some countries we devote a lot of money for research. We need it. We have to come up with vaccine. I keep talking about Lassa. Lassa fever has been killing, and it's also within us. It's not pandemic, but it's also a serious problem. Why haven't we developed a vaccine for it? This one is a global problem. Thank God. And something.
Yeah, I'm asking. Look, all kinds of countries, flights are being restricted and movement is being restricted. Visas have also been suspended, except for very essential travels. What should we do? Should we still keep our doors open?
And we have porous borders, so we should also be proactive. We should be very proactive. Enough of this keeping quiet.
Okay, thank you so much, Ambassador Joe Keshi, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Ambassador Christine Bono, one of the nation's few female ambassadors and Nigeria's former permanent representative to the African South American Cooperation. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for
coming. At least I have another lady with me. We also thank Ambassador Moteza Rahimi Zarchi, the Iranian ambassador to Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming. And via Skype, we were joined by Rusi Chidebe. He's the Executive Director of Project Pink Blue and a student currently studying at the Birmingham City University. Thank you so much for your input. Sports Update is next.